Welcome back to Between Two Racks with the Kilo Crew. On today's episode, we're going to cover rep schemes. We're going to talk about how to set them up, how to load them, if we like them, and where to periodize them. So, let's kick it. So, I'm assuming we're going to start this episode off by talking about standard sets. Who am I going to turn it over to first today?
I can start. So standard sets, so these would be your typical classic, like 4x8, 5x6, so a certain amount of sets and a very specific amount of reps. So these should be the core of anyone's training throughout your training career. It should be what is used in the early stages with a new trainee. The way you load standard sets, there are two ways. There's constant loading and there's step loading. Constant loading you will use in basically two situations. You would use constant loading with a full-blown beginner when you have zero idea of their work capacity. So let's say you're starting like 3x12, which would be a very standard set rep schemes to start somebody with, but you don't know. Do they have like a high amount of work capacity or not? Or are they going to crash really quick? So you start with a very conservative load. They do their first set of 12. Then you as the coach, you gauge. If it was ridiculously easy, then go up, of course. But if you feel like it was somewhat challenging, stick to that weight. So let's say it was 100 kilos, stick to 100 kilos. And then set number 2, you go for 12 again. Can they do 12 reps? Yes, they can. Stick to 100, go for 12 again. But then you look if there's a drop-off. So like I've trained people in the past where the first set, the first 12 reps, it was hard. I maintained the same weight. But then all of a sudden, set number 2, now they go from 12 to 9 reps. All of a sudden, there's a drop-off. So can you imagine if you would have step-loaded that person, the drop-off would have been even bigger. So you just need to use that constant loading in the early stages to make sure that you have a good vision as the coach of what that athlete can tolerate. Now, past the initial mesocycle or macro cycle, then you can move on to step loading. Another situation where I would use constant loading would be in a context of pure hypertrophy development. So for those of you familiar with our education, we're talking about like the hypertrophy online or the hypertrophy intensive type of content for the intensification phases. The intensification phases in that context, we're trying as much as we can to train as close to the RM as possible. We want to be close to failure, if not at failure, for each and every set. So for that crowd, I would use constant loading because we're not necessarily here trying to coax the brain towards a peak load. We're really trying to create a training response that favors maximal tension and favors the development of hypertrophy. So it's a little different. That's why in that case would be using constant loading. Now, for the rest of the population, so people like advanced novice or intermediate or advanced lifters, especially for strength development, then you would use step loading. So 3x12, 100 kilos, you do 12, you succeeded doing 12, go up very conservative, like 2-3%. Set number 2, 102, shoot for 12, you succeeded. Set number 3, 104, shoot for 12, you succeeded. Next workout, maybe now, because you've done, so workout 1, you've done 100 for 12, 102 for 12, 104 for 12. Now workout 2, start your session with the first set with whatever weight you use for the second set of the first session. So session 2, very, very methodical, 102 for 12, 104 for 12, 106 for 12. Succeeded, workout 3, 104 for 12, 106 for 12, 108 for 12. So this is very methodical, but it works really well. It favors success. People thrive on success. You're not missing reps. You're doing high quality work and you keep on progressing. So that's one really good way to do it. Now, if you're doing step loading, and let's say you're doing 100 for 12, 102 for 12, and then 104, and you only do like 9 reps, for example, there's been a drop off. Okay. Now, next workout, stick to the same weights. And now go for 100 for 12, 102 for 12, 104. Now you try to do 12. Maybe you'll do 11. That's okay. At least there is a progression. So that's what you're looking for. So this would be your standard sets and the way you approach them on a loading perspective.
In terms of standard sets, like I know we have our rep schemes in 1RM continuum, and I know you and Alex kind of went through and picked which rep schemes you use the most, and that's what's on that rep schemes in 1RM continuum poster that we have, or sheet. Can you talk a little bit about, like, obviously there are other rep schemes, and I know you use other ones, but when you guys put that together, was it just pulling the rep schemes that you used the most?
Yeah, like basically at that time we pulled up every rep scheme that we had ever used in the context of our programming. So, you know, like we're talking about 2005 when we pulled that stuff. So we were still like, that was year 6 and 7 of our career. Now, you have to understand that I trained before I was a personal trainer. So I still had data I pulled from previous, but as a professional, I had been working for 6 years when we had pulled these numbers, these reps. So there's more, obviously, but these were all the ones that we had used.
And I think one of the main things when we were looking for is like they had to have a special criteria that Steph gets really upset about, is the intensity spread. So all our rep schemes always have a 10% intensity spread that we chose, right?
Yeah, like 10, 12% tops. Like it has to fit within that window. Because even to this day, I'm still a big believer in what Zatsiorski talks about, and not just him, a bunch of other scientists talks about, like Rob Feiser, even for Germany, talks about that 10% to 12% spread of intensity, just to make sure that you're not confusing the central nervous system as to what the goal of that exercise is. So if you're doing a bench press, but you're having a, the classic like old-timer bodybuilding rep scheme of 15, set 1, 15, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2. Okay, like I've had friends that were doing this back in my teens. But the problem with that is now 15 reps is 66% of 1RM, 2 reps is 94% of 1RM. So we have a 28% range of intensity between all these reps. So now the brain doesn't really know what it is you're trying to accomplish with that exercise. Are you trying to build strength endurance, or are you trying to build relative strength? I don't know. You're confusing me. So what these exercise scientists showed is that if you keep an intensity bracket closer to 10%, now there's less confusion and the central nervous system knows what quality it is you're trying to develop. So that's why the majority of these rep schemes are built that way.
And for standard sets, we generally have a recommendation of a 10 to 12% intensity spread throughout all those standard sets. So say it's 3x12, like Steph was saying, like 10% would be the absolute max. Like generally, if it's 3 to 4 sets, I'll keep the intensity spread closer to 4 to 8%. If it's 5 to 6, maybe 7, it'll go from, if it's 7, it might go up as far as 12. But like 5 or 6, it'd be under 10% spread. 7 maybe go as far as 12. 8 plus, okay, 12, maybe up to 15 once you hit like 10 plus sets to the same rep bracket.
That's why it's good to have micro plates, to have the small the smallest increments so that you can stay within those spread.
But if you look at our, I'm sorry, I cut you off, but if you look at our online program design course, like the primary exercise, like the money maker exercise, if you want, like the guidelines in terms of sets for the A series is 4 to 6. So that means that for us, the majority of the time, your time is spent on that A series between 4 to 6 sets, on average 5.
Yep.
So if you really think about it, 5 sets. So let's say 5 by 6 standard set with a 10% spread. Well, so let's say your 6RM is 100 kilos. 10% of 100 is 10. So you finish. So your last set should be 100. Deduct 10. Your starting set number 1 should be at 90. So 90, 92.5, 95, 97.5, 100. So even mathematically speaking, it's pretty easy to do, but it's just in the purpose of that 10% range and step loading is to coax the body, the central nervous system, towards more expression of strength. So you're slowly preparing yourself to be able to tap into all of these more units to express strength to its fullest when you're peaking on that last set. Plus, it allows you to better monitor recovery over time, because that's why that constant loading with hypertrophy, we only keep it to these extreme hardcore hypertrophy macros, but it's only for the intensification phases, because to use constant loading and train to failure on primary movements for multiple sets will dip the recovery curve like crazy. But at least that 10 to 12% range of intensity allows you to better monitor this, because at the end of the day, that squat session for 5 by 6 is only that one set that's going to be taken to full all-out failure. Not that set 1 is easy, but it's really important, because, and I in the sports performance seminar yesterday, I gave that example. The perfect example that we see all the time is my favorite lift, Poric's favorite lift, the deadlift. And like I said, it seems somehow deadlift, people can only load that exercise by 45-pound plate or 25-pound plate. So the classic is, okay, set 1, 225, set 2, 275, set 3, 315, set 4, 365, set 5, 405. But now, if you're doing this, okay, yeah, like set 4 and 5 were pretty hard, but set 1, 2, and 3 were basically warm-ups. So now you didn't do 5 by 6, you did 2 by 6.
But that's what's important. Even if you're step loading, you still have to warm up.
Oh, yeah.
People will just say, oh, well, since we're step loading, I can just start my set 1 with 10% less of my last set. But no, you still want to do 2-3 warm-up sets before you start.
Yeah, for sure.
People don't do that.
And like, as you see, when we get into the more complex rep schemes, the reason this is our base is because it's so much more manageable to recover from. Because as we move into the more extreme ones and you're working closer to your RMs, it's brutal. So like, the more and more I train, the more and more I lean towards standard sets. Like, I know it is not the best for coaxing results, but
I don't even think that's why people choose to use the complex rep schemes. Like, everyone, like, we always end up saying, don't try to be too sexy with your rep schemes. People just want to use it because it looks cool, but in the end, if you're not using it properly, you're not really getting those results that you're looking for. So mastering the standard sets first and loading.
And people also like to use it because they think their clients are going to find it more fun to do different reps.
Exactly, yeah.
Realistically,
really.
does it really matter to the client if they're doing 7 reps or 5 reps? Like,
That's more for us.
Yeah.
We like the fucking
I think it always goes back to everything what we say too is you have to earn
the right
to do the complex rep schemes. Because in the end, and I don't remember if you already said this, what percentage is it that you're using standard sets in periodization? Like, it's the vast majority of the time.
Year.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, only with my really, really, really advanced will it be about 50%.
Yeah.
And we're talking about legit advanced. Like,
it's hard. It's like mentally, it's hard to do the complex
It sucks.
ones. Yeah.
Yeah. You need to be very well. Not only do you need to know your loads very well, you need to be one of, like, Jean-Marie, like, used to be my training partner back in Montreal, like from 2000 to 2005. I mean, I've been training him now for 25 years. But, like, he's a training machine. Like, his recovery ability is top notch, but he's like, man, he's like
a robot.
He's like the role model of. I mean, how old is he now?
Like he's 57.
57. He's still shredded, strong. Trains 4 times a week. Doing
Eats like consistently the same thing.
Yeah. So his recovery is on point, and he knows his load. So him, sometimes through an entire macro, he might have had like 3 out of 4 that were complex rep schemes. But he's kind of like a machine. Like, he's the exception to the rule. But the vast majority of the time, like, even myself, like at my peak in training, it was maybe 1 or 2 per macro top.
Yep.
And it would be on mesos where it really mattered or it really made a difference.
Yeah.
Because standards are way more. And then, like, I know we talked about this in episode 1 or 2. I'm forgetting, but I want to reiterate this. Like, because of Charles Poliquin being our mentor in our early days, we used to use the range for standard sets. We used to be like 4x6 to 8 or 3x8 to 10. But since 2018, we don't anymore, because I was tired of people always shooting right from the get-go for the lower rep, not understanding that 4x6 to 8, what I'm really looking for is 4x8, and the 6 to 8 was just to tell you that if at the end you have a drop-off, you're fine as long as you're 6 or above. People take it as 4x6 to 8. Okay, I'll do 4x6. But the problem, if they do 4x6 on set 1, it means that by set 4, they'd be doing 4 or 5 reps. But the problem with this, and this is what people need to understand, is when you're as obsessed as we are with program design and periodization, we calculate and monitor every parameter. And one of them is volume. So there's intensity, and intensity is the first thing that you need to set up. But once you have your intensity set up, you need to focus on the volume component. And the volume does have high impact on strength development. So if you're planning your macro cycle and one of those phases is looking for a 30 rep volume, like 5x6, I'm looking for 30 reps. But if instead you're doing 5x4 to 6, and session 1 you did 4, 4, 3, 2, 2, then that's 8, 11, that's 15 reps. That's 50% less volume than what we had planned for. So at the end of the macro cycle, now you're going to affect the next macro cycle, which will affect how much you can peak over time. So it's really important that you do a good job at monitoring your weight properly so that you're hitting those volume targets. So if we're looking for 30, okay, if you have like 27, you're fine. But if it's a substantial drop-off, it's just the training won't work. And that's what happened to me early in my career. And it's only at the age of 22, after consulting with Charles, that he made me realize that I was not loading properly, and that was affecting my gains. And once I corrected this, then finally stuff started to happen with my training. So it's really important.
I think for people too, the thing that's hard is to know when to go up. So in terms of, like, if you're coaching someone, you want to make sure you're paying attention to the speed of their concentric contraction. Make sure that they can follow. Like, if it takes them 5 seconds to go up, no, you're not going to go up the next set. So you still have to think that you want them to achieve the next set with the right amount of reps.
Yeah, that's true. And let me ask you guys this question. I just want to see if we look at training the same way. So when I'm coaching someone in terms of load selection, on the last rep of a set, I'm looking for struggle, but within a extremely well controlled technique.
Yeah, the form stuff.
I'm looking for zero technical breakdown, but I still want to see some struggle, a grind, but zero technical breakdown. If they need to raise their butt off of the bench, or the head starts moving, or the leg starts moving, then no, like that is so that's too much for me. So I want struggle via high quality, and that's how you gauge it. And if you do that, not only will you progress, but you're going to recover better, and the incidence of injury will be much less.
So with my clients, what I do, so oftentimes once they know me, they'll be like, we going up, we're going up. So if they ask, you're like, are we going up? I'm like, well, if you ask, you probably can go up. That's usually my thing. But then you also have to know your client, because some of them will know you, and then they'll start pretending that it's really hard. So you have to pay attention to people.
And to me, there are two. Well, there's three, but mostly two very important primary lift. Well, three. Three very important primary lift where people mess up when it comes to loading. It's the front squat, the back squat, and the dip. And the reason is these three lifts don't have a clean cut start and finish range of motion. Okay? Like deadlift, you start on the ground to lock out. Bench press from the chest to lock out. But on squat, front squat, and dip, the problem is trainees, as it gets harder.
And chin-ups.
Well, that's why I was saying that and a half and stuff. But there's also, but the chin-up, technically speaking, it's a very clean cut. But people mess it up. But the other ones, it's a little more subtle. Because the dip, like
shorten your range a little bit.
Because you need to first test, okay, what is your full range of motion with body weight? So this is your full range of motion. So I want to see that exact same range of motion with load. But the problem is, if you don't pay attention to this, as it gets heavier, people just start going down like half an inch less from set to set. So now you don't realize it because it's so small, but over set 1 to 5, now there's a 2-inch difference. And now you think the athlete progressed. They didn't progress. So it's very tricky. Same thing with squat. If you're not dipping to your max range and you keep shortening and shortening and shortening. So as a coach, you need to be very methodical with the technique and range of motion.
As a coach and a trainee, I think it goes back to leaving your ego out of it. Just to lift more weights, you cheat the range of motion just to lift more.
Yeah.
What's next? The complex ones.
Complex rep schemes. So the first one that we introduce to clients is descending reps. So this is simply you're going to reduce the amount of reps from set to set. This could be you're going down in one set or one rep, so like 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, or you could go down by 2. So say it's 12, 10, 8, 6. It's still going to follow the same law of it's all going to be within 10% intensity spread, but we're going to reduce the volume or per set as we increase the intensity and increase the load. So this is going to be a really nice one to introduce clients to, because generally clients, for the first time they're getting exposed to higher intensities, their nervous system isn't great. So slowly reducing the amount of reps and increasing the intensity is a really good way to coax their nervous system to be able to produce more force as the sets go on. So it's a really good way to say if someone's finally getting like down into relative strength for the first time. So it's going to be their first exposure for 4 reps. So you're just going to coax them there slowly. So I really like this one. I use this one with clients a lot.
And these are harder because a lot of people ask that question. True. They're harder because each set is at your RM.
Or very close.
Or very close compared to the standard sets where you're like, you have that 10% intensity spread for, let's say your given RM is 6. So you're starting at 10% less. But here, if you start at 10, you're doing your 10 RM, 9 RM, 8 RM. So,
regarding warming up for these, are there more warm-up sets, or are you still following the same?
Well, it depends what your first load is. So if it's a 8 RM, you can two to 3. But like if you're doing something that starts with 5 reps, you might want
which would be even more advanced.
Yeah, so it just depends on where your first load is and how heavy it is. So it's even relative. So an advanced lifter who's saying squatting 500 pounds, no matter what, is going to take more warm-up sets to get to the 500 pound than someone that's squatting 100.
Okay. And I do want to point out to everyone listening that when we're going to start going through these rep schemes, we're presenting them in the order of complexity, or what would it be, or how we would use them, introduce them?
Yeah, pretty much in order of complexity, which means in the order of how they should be introduced to the trainee. Okay, so the descending rep scheme would be the first one. So like Alex says, you're slowly coaxing towards a higher load. So like, for example, let's say you've been doing like 4x10 as your first phase. So you step loaded. So now you're really good. You figure out what your 10 RM is. And now the next phase, you slowly want to now introduce higher loads, but you're not like at the level where it's really, really easy. Like you don't know your loads so well yet that it's easy for you to go from, let's say, 10 to 4 from one phase to the other. Well, maybe a smarter way would be, okay, next phase, we're going to use the 8, 7, 6, 5, 4 rep scheme. So now, because you've just done 10, so now we know 10 reps, that's your RM. So to go from 10 to your 8 RM, it's an easy extrapolation to make. But now you do your 8, your 7. Oh, we're increasing the weight, you're 6. You're increasing the weight, you're 5. Increasing the weight, you're 4. Now you're doing a 4, but you've slowly built up to it. Unlike the more advanced could go from a phase of 4x10. Now you know exactly where to jump. Bow. Now we do like sets of 4, and it's more manageable. Yeah. So anyway, so that's one way you can do it. If you're more advanced, obviously, because now the jump from 10 to 4 reps, we're talking about a 14% jump. So this you would only do with advanced trainings.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So for complex rep schemes, it is the average of the whole rep scheme that is going to be the intensity for the phase. So in this example, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, the average is going to be 6. So the overall intensity for that phase is going to be 83%. Whereas for the 4 reps, it'd be straight up to 88%.
So are there, like in terms of descending reps, are there some that you guys tend to use more frequently than others?
That one we've been talking about.
The 8, 7, 8.
Mang anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 2 that I really like. I like the 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. And I really like... Alex going to think I'm joking, but
oh boy.
I really like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I really like it.
Is this like personally, or are you like using it with clients?
Personally.
Yeah.
Personally.
So you tend to use the 8, 7, 6, 5, 4 for descending reps?
Yeah. That's by far the descending rep schemes I've used the most. Because it just makes sense. Because with like intermediate novice or intermediate clients, like you start with 10 or maybe 12. Yeah. So to have your first complex rep scheme progression to be one that starts at 8 just makes a lot of planning sense.
And it builds a lot of confidence for the people who are nervous about doing the lower reps. Yeah. I really like it with clients. It just kind of...
Their first exposure to a lower rep.
Yeah. So now maybe we can keep on going with the order, but one thing that I want to make sure we don't forget is I want to explain afterwards how we load complex rep scheme. I just want to make sure we cover that. Because Alex explained it, but I want to explain it over a mesocycle, how you would load it.
Yeah.
So obviously... So we'll go back for the loading over the mesocycle. Obviously, we like descending reps. So where to periodize them? Is it more...
So generally for descending reps, since we're finishing on an exposure of intensity, we like it in intensification phases.
Okay.
It's not to say you can't use them in a accumulation phase, but they're better suited to intensification phases.
Okay, so then flipping that, so then we'll move on to ascending reps.
Which suck.
I don't think I've ever done. I mean, I've tried to do it once, and it's just I would need like 6 warm-up sets before I could even start on an ascending.
I mean, me, I've done it a
my
bunch
gosh.
early in my career simply because
You're fast twitch.
I wanted so much to be fast twitch that I convinced myself that was the rep schemes for me, but it just isn't.
It's so tough.
But because so that's what's interesting about this. So I'll explain you guys the theory behind why it's useful, but then I'll explain to you guys my revelation of the facts, the reality instead of the theory. Because I am fast twitch, like predominant. I am for
Just
real.
so you know.
But that rep schemes does not work well for me at all. So the theory behind anything ascending, like ascending reps, ascending stage ascending, whatever ascending is, the theory behind it is it's supposed to be really good for fast twitch people because fast twitch people have poor endurance or poor work capacity. So what you do is you warm up properly, and then your first set is your heaviest. So like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 would be the opposite, the ascending example, the 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Okay, so it's the same average intensity of 83, but the difference now is you're starting your first set at 88% of your 1RM with 4 reps. And then as you're fatiguing and you've tapped into your high threshold motor units early, now you're fatiguing. So to account for that fatigue, let's drop the intensity, and now you build volume because you've done the high quality work already. You've tapped and you've created that rate coding, whatever it is, earlier on. So that's the theory. So that's why it's supposed to be great with fast twitch.
I'm tired just thinking about it.
But the thing is, it didn't work well for me. And whenever I started training a lot of like NFL guys, especially where a lot of them were really fast twitch, I'm like, well, okay, maybe it's just me. So I started doing it with them. And honestly, except from one guy, every other pro athlete I've ever trained with ascending rep scheme did better with the same rep scheme descending. Yeah. So as a coach, I'm very pragmatic. So if 8, 7, 6, 5, 4 brings me X result and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 brings me Y results, but X is better than Y, and X is better than Y all the time, then I'm going to use X. Yeah. So I always try the ascending, but if it doesn't work as well, I scratch it and I never use it again because what's the point? But what I've noticed that happens is, although theoretically you should be stronger early, the vast majority of people, even if they warmed up properly, they still, and that's the thing, like if you train an NFL lineman, they're strong as hell. Yeah. So you do a proper warm-up, cool, but trust me, it still takes a few real work sets for them to reach their true potential. Yeah. So whenever I looked at the average load lifted over the course of that rep scheme, there would always be a higher average load lifted with the descending compared to the ascending for the exact same intensity all the time, except that one guy. So that one guy we used ascending because it worked better for him.
Yeah, every time I've used ascending rep schemes on myself, I haven't, I've tried it with clients, but never had much success. The only way I could work it to have a same level of success is do like an overshoot warm up, where I'm actually going to warm up past the RM that I'm going to be working at that day. But if you're short, that means I'm going to be warming up to over 90% on a phase that, like for the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rep scheme. So the phase that's counting that I'm trying to, on average, work at 83%, my warm-up had to go up past 90. So it just doesn't really make sense.
Yeah. Plus, you want to be realistic. You're not going to warm up for your bench press for 25 minutes.
No.
So at one point, you need to keep going. You need to start. But what's interesting is not only the majority of these athletes, the average load was more in the descending. The peak load was also more on the descending, which seems counterintuitive because you'd feel like, well, you just did 8, 7, 6, 5. Like you should have accumulated fatigue, which would negate a higher peak. But no, it actually prepped them better, and they peaked more than when they started at 4.
Sure.
It's possibly the difference between a team sport athlete who's a very generalist in the weight room and, say, like track or specialist in the weight room who could go in and hit that peak load and then back off.
Very well said. What you said is 100% true. And unfortunately, the vast majority of training information that we get as coaches come from these elite weight room warriors, like the weightlifters of the world and or the track athletes. Now you use that information for a hockey player, a baseball player, a volleyball player. It's not the same reality. They're not weight room experts. So all of these models, sometimes they just don't apply. It's like we were talking about, like the more advanced forms of contrast training. Yes, it's great for a track athlete, a triple jumper, but for a dude who's on skates gliding all day long.
Yeah.
Okay, so ascending isn't Kilo's
No,
favorite.
It's not. It's on the chart though.
It's on the chart, but
Because, like you said, like maybe there is someone that it works for better.
Yeah,
but
no, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so ascending reps, then we move to back off sets, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So
a back off set is a descending rep. So you do like 10, 9, 8, and then your last set you would back off in intensity and finish with like maybe 15 reps.
Yep.
So that would be used more for an accumulation phase because again you're ending with the higher reps. I haven't used that one that much with like.
No, it's really more of a niche type of rep scheme. It's one of these things where, like you would do in the context of it would be great for absolute strength, for example. You do it in the context of strength, but strength with somewhat of a hypertrophy bias. So like for alignment, for example, would be a good rep scheme.
Steph is very much still in the sports performance.
I mean, we finished, 13 hours ago?
yeah, exactly.
So it works really well for that because you have the descending aspect, right? So you're prepping your brain towards a heavy load, okay? But then in order to like either retain or revisit hypertrophy, you do that back off set at the end to generate more volume so that you have at the end of that mesocycle, although you dipped really high in the intensity realm, your total volume is still high enough to maintain the hypertrophy component.
Yeah. So this is actually something I would use plenty for those reasons because I know, like say it's a accumulation too that we really have to push the volume in. This is one way I can push the volume and maintain a higher overall tonnage for that there phase.
Exactly.
So it's really good in just those situations that the second accumulation is like it's up there in the volume. People are going to struggle. So at least it's only really one like killer set, but it's at the end. It's fine. You're moving on.
What
to your
do you use? Which
one?
Yeah.
The one that finishes 15. I always have to look that one up. Or I can see it. Oh no! So 2 favorites: 7, 7, 5, 5, 12, the real classic one, and where's it?
8, 6, 4, 4, 12.
8, 6, 4, 4, 12. Yep,
That's a good one.
Yep.
Like the 8, 6, 4, 4, 12 is usually the first one introduced because it's a hybrid in the sense that it starts this straight up descending. So now you're used to it because you've done descending prior. And then only the bottom of the rep scheme, your 4s, now you're doubling up. So now you have the law of repeated effort with the 4s. Okay, so now it's going to be your first introduction to a double exposure. But it was preceded by descending, and then you back off, and then you generate your volume. Whereas the 7, 7, 5, 5, Anthony DiTillo used that one a lot. So it's a staged ascending, 7-7-5-5. So it's double exposure, and then boom, you have your back off.
Yeah, and what I really like about that one, it's the double exposure, but you're in that functional hypertrophy range for it.
Yeah.
So everyone's getting like the best of both worlds there, and then you're hitting one high rep set at the end to really push the volume.
And like you said, these are better for the accumulation phase because the last exposure is one that represents volume. But the key, and if you look at our rep scheme database, every back off protocol that we have, you need that last set to back off about 15 to 20% from the previous set. So for example, 8, 6, 4, 4, 12. So 4 is 88%, 12 is 70%. So that's a 18% back off. So we're in that 15 to 20% window because you want the back off to be big enough that it puts you outside of the window. So you're not interfering with what we were trying to build, but it's just that one set for one very specific purpose. But it shouldn't be so close that now you're kind of like disturbing what it is we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And then maybe not getting all the reps too, right? It's too close.
Yeah. I mean, you might not be able to get all the reps, but what I do though is so let's say you're doing 8, 6, 6, 4, 4, 12. Like I'm not necessarily going to use a 12 RM.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm more conservative because now I am accounting for the residual fatigue. So instead of using a 12 RM, I might use a 15 RM type of load. Or if it's somebody that's really, really, really fast twitch, I might even push it to 60% of 1 RM, and then you just blast your reps, and guess what? They're going to crash and burn at 12 anyways.
Yeah.
Would you use these in the B and C series?
Yeah, you can. Definitely.
But a lot of the other, we'll talk about them too, but a lot of the rep schemes we use only in the A series.
Well,
like the fancy one.
Yeah, but yes, but the data, because, okay, but that's a good point that you're bringing up, because if you look at our rep schemes database, there's one column called strength endurance that we never use that column for the A series ever. It does not exist in our programming in the A series, but why is it there? Because I use that column a lot in the C series with single joint dominant type exercises. Or like calf, like seated calf raise, for example. I'll do like some pretty crazy rep schemes there because it's suited for that. Yeah. But like I'm not going to do like there's one pretty funky, like this one is kind of cool, is 15, 10, 15, 20, 30. Okay, so it's an ascending rep scheme. But guess what I do that for? Like seated calf raise. Yeah. Yeah. But the range now is way bigger than 10%. But we're applying this to such a slow twitch, neurologically inefficient muscle,
short range,
that it doesn't matter. But at least my first set of 10, I'm going to tap in the tiny 12% of fast twitch fibers that muscle has. I'm going to go and try to maximize that. But at least you finish up by building more and more and more and more and more volume to go along with the nature of the muscle. But they're so specialized, you're not going to use these very often.
And everyone knows how much we like high rep leg press.
Yeah.
These are also a great way to introduce high rep leg press for the first time. So say you're going 20, 30, 50. So, all right, your overall reps are high, but it's only one really killer set. But next time you introduce it, you can have a higher overall average.
I think because you just said the whole back off set in the B series, you guys are talking about the C series. And I remember when we first released the rep schemes in 1RM continuum sheet, drop sets are on there. And people were kind of thrown off with the drop sets being on the sheet because everyone thought this sheet was only what we used for the A series.
Yeah, no, drop sets. I mean, honestly, never. I would never use it in the A series. You can, but I would never.
It's pretty brutal.
But honestly, like I've never really trained anyone that's magnificent enough in strength training to warrant the use of a drop set in the A series.
Yeah. I've done it once on myself, and I've learned my lesson.
once.
I've done it on myself too, because we gotta try stuff.
Exactly.
But I don't use it with clients, pro athletes included. But one thing I want to clarify too, to make sure there's no confusion, that 10 to 12% intensity range that we're talking about, so that we're not messing up with the central nervous system on what they're trying to accomplish with the exercise. It is the exercise. A lot of people sometimes are confused, and they extrapolate this rule to the training session. But it's not the training session, it's the motor pattern that you're training. So if I'm doing 8, 8, 6, 6, 4, 4 on squat in the A series, it's okay if I'm doing sets of 15 in the C series on a leg extension, because it's a single joint movement. It's not multi-joint. You don't have a bazillion stabilizers involved. You have very targeted, very specific motor units. So it's not the same thing. So don't fall in the trap of like thinking that, okay, well, if I have 8x3 in the A series, my B series has to be sets of 4 and my C series has to be sets of 5. That's not how it works. It really depends on the nature of the movement. Is it multi-joint? Is it single joint? Is it predominantly fast twitch? Is it predominantly slow twitch? Is it predominantly phasic muscles, tonic muscles, stabilizer muscles, anchor muscles? Like all these will affect the rep selection.
But on that note, also don't go from relative strength bias session. So like say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then your C series have 50 reps. Like the overall session still needs to make context, but you don't have to stay within that small bubble, but just have a overall goal for the session.
Medium bubble.
Yeah, medium bubble.
But just keep in mind, and we see this all the time and on programs on social media, like unless the entire training session is multi-joint dominant, if you ever see a training session where each and every exercise is the exact same rep, so let's say it's 8 reps across the board 8 reps is not that crazy, but let's say it's 4 reps across the board on everything, like wrist curls included, neck extension included.
Or if it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 on all your exercises.
That is non-logical. That's not how a training session is meant to be built.
Yeah, unless like you're talking, like you said, multi-joint. So say it's a full body session, someone's going from squat to bench press, chin up, and that's them out. Okay, makes sense. Yeah. Like we're talking the same thing, but if you're going from squat to a split squat to a leg curl to a calf raise, it's ridiculous.
Okay, so we just did back off sets, so now broad pyramid.
Yeah.
Correct.
So broad pyramid, I mean, I talked about it before in the podcast a little bit, but broad pyramid, so you have the old classical, really, really like what I said, like the 15, 12, 10, 8, 6, blah, blah, blah. That's too wide. So you want that, again, that 10 to 12% range in your pyramid. But what that is, the pyramid is it's a combination of descending with ascending and a peak in the middle where you have your highest amount of load. So it's a good follow-up because now you've learned how to descend, because that was the first rep schemes that we introduced in the complex family. You've learned how to ascend because that's the second complex rep scheme. You've had a double exposure with the back off set. Okay, so now you're doing all stuff you've done before, but all in one. So let's say we're doing 7, 5, 3, 3, 5, 7. So we have a descending up to our first triple, double exposure on our triple. So law of repeated effort. We're reinforcing the exact same load, and then we're backing off. So 5 reps, 7 reps. And the key this is
Very
the
important.
key, is you want to slightly underestimate a little bit your starting 7 and starting 5. Replicate your triple twice with the same load. And then as you're going up the reps, you want to use the exact same weight you did on your 5 and the exact same weight you did on 7, and you go for broke. You try to match that. Okay? So you might, maybe you're going to miss one rep, maybe, but you really try to do it. So the pyramid is great because you're building up to your peak load. You have that double exposure on that peak load. So you have a little bit better of a learning curve in terms of strength development. But then you have the back off element. So you have that hypertrophy component, lower quality work in terms of neural activation of high threshold mode units, but it still quality works in terms of hypertrophy development because now you're doing a lot of work at your RM load. But because the last signals are one of volume and not intensity, these are also more suitable for accumulation phases. And they're also taxing. Okay, so keep that in mind. I bring that up all the time, but Zatsiorsky's fitness fatigue paradigm. So fatigue masks fitness. If you're trying to peak a load, let's say in intensification 2 of a macro cycle, you're trying to be as strong as you can. You cannot do a rep schemes that potentiates or creates more fatigue, because then you're going to affect your ability to perform on these high loads. But they're great precursors to that peak. So there would be a great accumulation 2 rep scheme to really, really, really push the envelope. You're quasi getting to overreaching, and then your last intensification via super compensation by week 3. Now you're going to be able to peak to a higher average load than you would normally. So they're kind of cool for that.
So these are always around 6 sets, right? Like you wouldn't. I mean, I know people try to create their own rep schemes.
It
and
can
they
be
mess it
6,
up.
7, 8, but it's more than you're not going to. Again, every time you see people use more than 6 sets, it's information gathered from elite weight training athletes.
Yeah, like at most, if you push it to 7 and had a triple exposure at the top weight, it's not going to be the worst, but people better be fit to recover because that's it's a lot of work.
And then moving on, it'll be stage descending.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
I thought Palor was your favorite.
No. Stage descending. Palor is my favorite to talk about because the story behind it. I love stage descending. Poric, do you want to talk about stage descending?
So stage descending, same thing. It's going to be set up over a 10% intensity spread, but we're going to have double exposures at each rep. So both me and Steph's favorite would be 7, 7, 5, 5, 3, 3. So you're going to do a double exposure at 80% with your 7 reps. You're going to go up about 5%. Double exposure at 85, and up again 5. Double exposure at 90. So it's really good because you're getting that low repeated efforts at 3 different intensities. And then you're slowly coaxing your nervous system to respond to more load throughout the session. So to me, I've always had the best results from myself and all my clients for pushing strength using stage system descending.
And this would be intensification phases?
Intensification phases, yeah. Again, you could use it in the accumulation phase, but you're going to get the best results in intensification.
That's the one thing that's interesting. Yeah. It's just that because the nature of strength training per se is strength development, and as you go through a macro cycle, even with undulating periodization, at the end of the day, block 1 and block 2 of a macro cycle, block 2 is more intense than block 1. So no matter what, strength training in the context of a training macro cycle is meant to increase intensity.
Yeah.
So even like anything that's descending in nature could still be used in accumulation and it would still have a positive impact. But it's just that it suits intensifications even more, whereas the ascending rep schemes can only really fit the accumulations. But unlike the descending, they're not as versatile because a ascending in a intensification typically leads to much less results. Yeah. So we don't use ascending in intensification.
Or ever.
Yeah.
Before we move on, when you just said the whole block 1 and block 2, because I know some people aren't used to always hearing that from us. So can you just explain what block 1 and block 2 is?
Yeah, so a typical 12-week macro cycle has 4 mesocycles. Accumulation 1, intensification 1, accumulation 2, intensification 2. So the ones, so accumulation 1 and intensification 1, which goes together because they're a continuity, that's block 1. Then accumulation 2, intensification 2, they go together, continuity, that's block 2. Then both of them together gives you your macro cycle.
Okay, just wanted that because I know I get emails about that because it's only more recently that we started writing in posts out where block 1 and block 2.
Yeah, and people probably confuse it with block periodization, which is not what we're referring to.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is confusing because because we're doing classical undulating periodization, it is in a way a form of block periodization, but the way we use the term block is not the way like Isurin defines block.
Yeah.
So it gets confusing.
Where were we?
We're now stage system ascending,
Which again we would never really use.
I
mean, we do, but we just don't like it.
Yeah, I will use this quicker than I'll use ascending reps.
Really?
Yeah. Why? I feel like I've had better luck with it. Like, so ascending reps, since it's such small jumps between it, and your reps are increasing gradually, I always feel people. I don't know if it's they don't like it because they see it as they're slowly just taking weight off the bar and doing more work. But with the stage, since you're getting a double exposure at each, I don't think they respond just as psychologically as bad to it. So they're like, all right, I'm doing 2 sets here. I'm doing 2 sets here. They near break it up the session instead of just looking, there's weight coming off the bar. So I still don't use it nearly as much as descending reps, but I would use it more than ascending reps.
And then to follow through with what he's saying with the small jumps and loads and all that, like it's really important because I've seen this mistake a bunch of time with some of my online clients when I look at their data is like the stages, it doesn't matter if it's descending or ascending, are not meant to be step loaded. Yeah. They're really meant to be defined by the law of repeated effort. It's about learning the exact motor recruitment pattern and rate coding that a specific load for a specific number of reps gives you. So if you do 8, 8, 6, 6, 4, 4, and you go like 100, 102.5, 105, because 8, which is 78%, 6, which is 83, is a 5% jump. So if you do 100, 102.5, 105, from 8 to 6, it's a 5% jump. But the problem now is your first 8 was quote unquote undertrained. So it was a wasted effort for the purpose of the law of repeated effort, which is the reason why we're using stage ascending. If I didn't want to do the law of repeated effort, I would just do
the
descending or standard sets, and I would just step load.
Yeah.
Okay, but don't step load these rep schemes. That's not the purpose of their existence.
Yeah. The complex rep schemes are never step loaded.
No. Yep. So 8, 8, 4, 6, 6, 4, 4 should be 100, 100, 105, 105, 110, 110.
That's a hard one for people to get in their head. They always want to step load.
Because it sucks.
Yeah. So don't do it.
Exactly.
If you don't.
Just write the standard set and load it like you're going to load the other one.
We won't judge you if you only do standard sets.
We'll judge you more if you do too much complex
and you do it incorrectly.
The worst I've seen on an online client was a ascending rep scheme. Like it actually was 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and the client was step loading.
Oh wow! So they were really undershooting.
So their 4 was everything was a warm up to a peak set of 8.
That was a warm up, basically, right?
Think about it. So you have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and let's say you're doing 4 at 100. And then you're doing 5 at 102,
Yeah.
You're doing 6 at the what? So
Yeah.
what?
Yeah,
Like you're
that's
doing a
not-
double progression. You're increasing the rep and the load.
Yeah.
So you know that they're definitely
Of
under.
course.
No, I know.
But that's the problem. Guess what? Now that was 3 weeks of training completely wasted.
Yep.
Completely wasted.
Or
That was my fault, though. I should have.
or is a 3-week-long deload.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Yeah. But
Now for Steph's favorite
Paler.
Story time.
story time.
Okay.
Story time with Steph.
All right. So
All right, here we go.
So the Paler system. So the first one you introduce is descending, then you would introduce the ascending. So an example of Paler, like the one I use probably the most with my really advanced clients, would be the 3-3-3-2-2-2. There's also the 5-5-5-3-3-3. So these are descending, Paler descending.
So Palor is always 3.
No.
Oh,
Well, it's
3 or 2.
it's
Okay.
it's 3 or more. But as long okay, it's complicated. As long as there's at least one intensity that has a triple exposure.
Yeah. I've
'Cause
seen 3-3-3-2-2.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you could have an intensity that has a double exposure as long as an intensity has at least
That's
3
3 or
exposures.
more. Okay.
But typically it's 3 and 3. Okay. So it's the law of repeated effort souped up. So that's why it's more advanced, because now you really have to have good work capacity, because you need to reproduce and replicate the exact same load and reps for 3 successive sets. Okay, so it's way more challenging. But the story about Paler is the first time I've seen this. So for those of you who don't know, I'm French Canadian. So speak French, Montreal. So the first time I learned about the Paler system was in 1997 when I first read Gilles Cometti's books on training. I forget the name, like Entraînement pour le sport, tome 1, something like that. And like he's talking about that system, but it's called Entraînement en palier. Palier is a French word that spells P-A-L-I-E-R, which basically means levels or plateaus, platforms.
Yeah.
Okay, so it makes complete sense, right? 3-3-3-2-2-2. It's like a platform, another platform. So palier. Now, as I keep growing as a coach and doing more continuing education, now I'm seeing pretty much all of the continuing education I did was in English. So now I'm seeing this term called Paler system, P-A-L-E-R, Paler system. But I'm like, oh, wow, like it's crazy how much it looks like Palier from Gilles Cometti, but it's Paler. So me, because I love training history, I spent hours and hours searching who this Paler guy is. I'm like, there's no exercise scientist called Paler. I've just never seen him. So then it clicked. I realized that probably what happened is somebody, an English-speaking person, stumbled on Gilles Cometti's book, saw the Palier system, thought it was cool.
And couldn't pronounce it.
Or when he wrote it down, he just forgot the I, because Paler is spelled the exact same way as Palier without the I.
Yeah.
So that's my theory. That's what I guess, that there's no literature on this. I just feel that it was a mishap in translation. But what's funny is the stage system. So like Paler is basically a souped up stage system. So it should be the same thing. But anyways.
So what? So is it just that there's the
only,
same reps and then
only 2 exposures on the stage system. Then once you get to Paler, it's 3 or more.
Okay.
And yeah, that's it. Like it's the exact same idea.
The only difference.
But the only difference is more exposures at the same intensity.
It's just it doesn't matter. But me just being like with that stuff, I just really was curious as to what the hell is that Paler name. But it's straight up Palier in French. So anyways, that's what it is. So it's like the stage. So treat it the same way as you do the stage. Law of repeated effort, but there's at least 3 exposures. It's just more advanced.
So moving on to wave.
Yeah. Wave. Wave would be well, there's another one that's really advanced that we're going to talk about after, but wave.
To me, wave is the most advanced on neurological.
Yeah, it is.
Whereas the next one we're going to talk about is more work capacity.
Exactly. Wave is definitely the more advanced on a neurological perspective. I like the wave is a weird one for me because I really like it, but I don't use it a ton because I find it really, really hard to do properly. So especially now that we train a lot of people more online, I'm always more tentative because a lot of the time I try and then it fails more than it succeeds. So I'm very cautious on who uses it. But the wave, so like a good example. So the wave is basically the first exposure, if you want, to post-activation potentiation. Okay. Now, when you look at the research on PAP, there's a minimum intensity threshold that's needed to create a potentiation effect. And that is 80%. Anything less than 80% hasn't shown to be very efficient at creating a potentiation effect. So that's why doing like something like 12, 10, 8, 12. Yeah, well, well, but 15, 10, 5, at least you have one exposures above 80. But but you see sometimes like 12, 10, 8, 12, 10, 8.
Yeah.
The reps are arranged in a wave, but technically speaking, that is not wave loading because it will not create any potentiation. Okay, so you have to understand that. So the reps per se needs to be relatively high. So technically the highest you could do is 975, 975. Yeah. You could argue with like a full-blown beginner 1086, 1086, but you're pushing it.
But you're not using waves with beginners.
Full blood.
Yeah.
So
No.
Yeah, but like beginner in the exposure to a wave. Okay, but yeah, I don't.
High.
You just
Yeah,
wouldn't.
okay.
Yeah. So a classic one could be like 532, 532, 321, 321. So these are like very classic waves that I tend to use a lot more in peaking, intensifications of peaking macro. So I don't want to confuse you guys, but some will understand. But let's say macro 2 and 4 of a training year, in the last intensification, I might use wave, at least in macro 4, for sure, if the client can deal with it, because it's such a good peaking rep scheme. So what happens is you're doing the first wave, so 5, 3, 2. So 85%, 90%, 94%. Okay, you want to be really close to it. Now you've coaxed the brain towards a higher intensity. 5, 3, 2. Now what you need to do is now you go back to 5 reps, but with slightly more weight than you did in the first set. And now because you've just subjected the brain to a heavier load with your 94% for 3, there's going to be potentiation effect, which will allow you to do 5 reps again with slightly more weight, but not ridiculously more weight, like a pound or 2 pounds maybe, okay? Like assuming you've been really, really close to your initial 5 RM. And then you go down that wave again, the second wave, with more load for your 3 and more load for your 2. So what this will do in theory, if you applied it properly, is your second exposure to your heaviest weight should be higher than what that rep allows you for load normally.
Like in a standard set.
Yeah. So that's why it's such a good peaking value. Now there's going to be variability. Some people, the potentiation will allow a little bit bigger of a jump, but you have to be careful. And you also have to be careful to not undershoot the first wave either. Because if you're too conservative in the first wave, sometimes what happens is, although there will be some potentiation, it just won't be significant enough to allow you to push the envelope beyond your actual RM. So too often what happens when people do waves is they do 6 sets of sub-maximal load.
Yep.
So they think they've done a wave because their reps were arranged in a wave from set to set, but they've never reached or they never benefited of a true potentiation. So they never actually gone beyond their 2RM if they did the 532, 532. But the problem is most people won't know that. Why? Because most people don't keep track of their load. They don't know. Yeah. Even in class, like how often do we ask a student, hey, what's your estimated 1RM on this lift? Oh, I don't know. Yeah. Okay. If you don't know, don't even attempt to do a wave because you won't even know if it worked or not. You're going to think it did because you succeeded, but maybe your 2RM was 100 kilos. You did a wave and you finished at 95 kilos and you think it worked. But it would only work if your 2RM is 100 kilos and you finish at 102. Then you know it worked. And then another issue, which I tend to see more with my more advanced guys that are like really gung-ho, is then they overshoot the first wave. Yep. They create so much fatigue, and then they crash, and the second wave looks like 5-2-0.
Yeah. Some people expect to get like a 5 to 10% potentiation effect off a wave, which just isn't going to happen. It's going to be like 1 to 2. If you're lucky, maybe 3% over what your predicted 1RM is. Like, it's not going to be huge. So that is like, the more advanced people tend to overshoot things, the less advanced people tend to undershoot it. It's why I very rarely use waves with people.
Yeah, and then if you're going to use it in a intensification, not a accumulation phase. But if you wanted to use one for accumulation phase, that's when, if you wanted to, you could use a 10.86, 10.86, but it won't have a potentiating effect.
There is also the waves with only 2 different. So like 6-1 or 1-6, 1-6, 1-6, which would be more of accumulation bias wave, because for 1-6, 1-6, 1-6, we're going to use our single repetition. It won't be a true 1RM, but we're using that to potentiate the 6. So we're using a heavy 1 to potentiate more volume exposure or more load exposure at a higher rep. So that is a wave you could use in an accumulation phase.
Yeah. So these are waves, but they're more advanced waves because the shift in load is more abrupt.
Oh yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, because whereas like the 532, it's like you're waving across a 10% range, whereas the 1-6 you're going from like you basically have a 15% jump from set to set.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, so it's more advanced. So the one like Poric said, the 1-6, 1-6, 1-6, good for accumulation, but then you could use that wave for intensification. And then all you need to do is flip the script and do 6-1, 6-1, 6-1. Now the 6, which is still above 80%, will potentiate the single. So then you can peak a higher single with that. So that's subtle, but it makes the difference.
Yep.
All right. So often the waves we use is only 2 waves because 3 is too much, right? Yeah. But could you use 3 waves and then really on the first wave start like 5% lower and then hit your RM on the second wave and then try to...
Yes, but yes, and I'm happy you bring this up because I feel...
Yes.
No, because I feel that's something that's not brought up or not understood. Again, what is it that I complain about all the time? The information, a lot of things. But
that'll be another podcast.
The information that we tend to get in the world of strength training comes from the elite, the Olympic weightlifter, and sometimes track and field. Whenever you see triple, quadruple waves,
that's all there.
It's always in the context of Olympic weightlifting, because these have super highly technical components to the lift.
And that's what they're doing in the gym.
And that's what they're doing all the time. Yeah. They're experts at that motor pattern, that movement pattern. And they don't do a lot of fluff stuff around their big lifts. So they can start a little lighter and do a little bit more waves, because they use the slightly lighter waves as basically technical refinement. But to fool yourself in thinking that you need 3 or 4 waves for incline bench press is ludicrous.
And say you do 3 waves, you're talking, that's 40 minutes of your session gone.
Yeah.
Like for the A series alone, it's going to take at least 40 minutes. So unless you have a very, very dedicated need to like perfect that lift, it's just not worth the time investment.
Yeah, agreed. That's the thing. Like when you're dealing with Gen Pop and or team sports athletes, you have much more important things to take care of than to build an expert at one specific movement. Like there's no such thing as specialization for the Gen Pop.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the final complex rep scheme we're going to do is the cluster.
Yep.
Yeah. So clusters.
Wait. How do you write a cluster?
Yeah, that's
So parenthesis.
Yep.
Then whatever the rep scheme. So say, well, we have 2 we use generally. So there's 3, 1, 1, 1. So parenthesis 3, comma 1, 1, 1 parenthesis
Slash.
Yeah.
Oh, slash. Sorry, slash. So for that one, we're going to use a 5 RM load and then accumulate 6 reps with that 5 RM load within one set. So we're going to do that by completing 3 reps, re-rack the bar, rest 10 to 15 seconds, 1 rep, re-rack 10 to 15 seconds, 1 rep, 1 rep. So the 10 to 15 second rest is just going to be enough to replenish some ATP-CP. So you can eke, and it will be an eke out that 6th rep. And then the other one we use is 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, which is 5 total reps, and we do that 90%. And obviously more advanced, because now instead of working 2 to 3% above the RM that we're trying to hit, we're now working 5% of it.
So like you're saying, this is every set. You're doing the 1, 1, 1. Yeah. And then, so you said 10 to 15 seconds in between
reps, in between
clusters.
Like, in between clusters. So like you do your 3 reps, say for 3, 1, 1, 1, you do your 3 reps as normal, then rest 10 to 15 seconds. 1 rep, rest, 1 rep, rest, 1 rep, then complete rest.
And that's 1 set.
That's 1 set.
Yeah.
So.
And then usually you do 3 to 5 sets.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. So
it's
max.
Pretty brutal.
5, yeah.
Yeah, 3 to 5 sets is the sweet spot, but your total volume is going to be dictated by the volume needed in the meso of the macro and all that.
And I'm assuming this is an intensification?
This is accumulation.
Okay, because it's so many,
Because what we're trying to do is accumulate more repetitions at a higher volume.
Okay.
We're not trying to hit a higher number. Yeah, it's accumulating more reps at that number.
Okay.
So more reps at that number is a expression of volume. So that's why it fits the accumulation phase. But also, not only that, is because it's brutal, right. It's heavy, so I get it.
Yeah,
so
that's why I would have thought that.
It seems like it's intensification, but it's brutal and heavy, but it's taxing. Mm-hmm. And again, I don't want to mention fitness fatigue paradigm all the time, but it is what it is. So because you're creating so much fatigue, you can't express full expression of strength, but it's a great precursor to your peak. So it's a great accumulation to technique to drive more volume at a higher intensity to allow you to fully peak in your intensification following. So like Poric said, there's 2 that we really like. 3, 1, 1, 1. So that's 85%, but 6 reps. So 1 more rep than the 5 that 85% should give you. And then you progress to 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, which is now at 90%. But now instead of 1 more rep than the load, you have 2 more reps than the load. So it's even more taxing, requires even more dip in the recovery curve. So, but there is an exception. There are 2 exceptions to clusters that make it so that you could use clusters in intensifications. And I think that's where people are confused sometimes. These two exceptions, if you're in a power block,
Definitely.
in a power block, you can definitely use clusters as a means to generate more velocity. So you're doing multiple reps at a high velocity, and you use the 10-second in between cluster to regenerate ATP-CP to allow you to have a more forceful velocity on each and every rep. So now these 5 reps you're doing will have a higher average speed than you would if you were to do these same 5 reps in a row. Okay, so but that's a different application of cluster. But for strength development, I would do it in accumulation. For power, you could do it in intensification. The other exception, which is power in a way, it's explosive strength, would be Olympic weightlifting.
Yep.
So in Olympic weightlifting, when you're training a little less than your actual RM number, you can do clusters to just rehearse and develop high quality work at high loads over and over and over again. So it's good for that, but it's a little different. But keep in mind that clusters, because the average intensity is so high, 85 or 90%, and we're saying that they're used in accumulation, well, they're by default going to be used more in relative strength macros. Like you're not, because you're not going to get a hypertrophy macro with an accumulation at 85% of intensity. That's not going to happen. Yeah. So there's not a lot of windows in a training year where you can actually use clusters efficiently.
Thankfully.
Yeah.
In power, would you still just rest 10, 15 seconds between
You
each?
could rest up to 30 seconds if you had to on a like, let's say you're doing power cleans.
Yeah.
You could do clusters with 30 seconds in between. But with because we're dealing with like on Schmidt-Bleicher's hierarchy of complexity, we're talking about level 6 type of stuff. It's not the most advanced, so you don't need like that much rest.
I think what confuses people is seeing the one, like the ones, so they think it's like, oh, this is super intense. I'm doing a 1 RM, but you're not doing 100%.
No, you're doing 90.
You're doing,
like in strength, you're doing 90.
90.
And I know when Carl Miller talked about clusters, he was prescribing longer again. Like his rest periods were more 45 to a minute. But again, for Olympic weightlifting athletes who specialize in the sport of Olympic weightlifting, so it's different.
I know you mentioned that you wanted to talk more on the loading of complex rep schemes.
Yes.
I know we've kind of gone, but okay.
So I'll use my favorite. So the 7-7-5-5-3-3. So stage descending. So the best way to load for this over the course of a 3-week mesocycle. So now 7-7-5-5-3-3. The average intensity of that rep scheme is 85%. Okay. All you need to do is you add the intensity of each set divided by 6, which is the number of sets in your rep scheme. You have your average intensity. So it's 85. But if week 1, you go right away, 7 reps at 80%, 7 reps at 80%, 5 reps at 85, 5 reps at 85, 3 reps at 90, 3 reps at 90, you will crash real quick because it's super intensive, it's super draining. So you can't do this. So what you want to do is be smart and conservative, and you reduce the load. Like what I like to do that works really well is 5%. Okay. It can be 4, whatever, but 5% works really well. So what you do is week 1, that 7, instead of using 80, you use 75. That 5, instead of 85, you use 80. That 3, instead of 90, you use 85. So basically, it's a 9-9-7-7-5-5 on the RM perspective, but you just do 7-7-5-5-3-3. So what happens is week 1, it's still challenging, but you're not drained. You're not missing any reps, but you've still created a strength response, because it's not like this didn't lead to any strength training response. So what happens is the next week when you come back to that exercise, so let's say it is incline press. So now week 2, incline press. Now You increase the load 5%, and now you're using the original 80, 85, 90% that you were supposed to use, and you do your 7, 7, 5, 5, 3, 3. That week will be hard, but you will succeed. You will not miss a rep because of the built-in progress that you've had from week 1 anyways. Even if it's just in a motor learning perspective of redoing the movement you haven't done for at least 3 weeks. Okay. Now, week 3, you increase the load 5% again. So week 3 with the complex rep schemes is an overreach. So now you're going 85, 85, 90, 90, 95, 95 for your 7, 7, 5, 5, 3, 3. That week will be completely brutal. It will be hard. Most will be able to complete all reps. Some might miss a rep or 2. It's okay. It's no big deal. It's week 3. Okay. But this week is really, really brutal. But if you look at the meso on a whole, the average intensity of that meso was still 85%. Okay. So it still fit the periodization model, but you adjusted the microcycle loading in a way that you optimize the training response and optimize the management of fatigue. But that's why we kept saying that you need to be careful with the complex rep schemes because they are way more stressful, way harder to deal with.
Yeah, and then like personally, I know I can't do that. If I do it, I miss way too many reps on week 3. So I do the exact same thing, but with 3%. So -3 on the RMs +3. And it means I will hit my reps there. But if I go 5, I'll miss out on too much volume. So it's not worth it for me. But there's still the progress over the mesocycle.
I think it all goes back to how important it is to know your numbers and learn the client, figure out what they respond best to, paying attention to everything in the session and really tracking what it is.
That's the art of coaching. Yeah. And that goes with what Poric was saying in the last podcast with experimenting. Yeah. Because now I like the whole 5% is on average. Yeah. And the average... The average is technically 70% of the world. Yep. Okay, so you still have the 30%.
And I think that's where people get confused with us because we teach systems and we do that to remove so many possible errors that you can make and to optimize the program. But the art of coaching takes years of experience and going through and practicing it.
Yeah, and the key word too is years of experience going through and practicing with intent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can have 20 years experience of half-assing and you still sucks 20 years later. So that's why the whole practice makes perfect. Well, only if you practice properly and with care.
To get better. Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, come on. You know, so you got to pay attention. You have to be serious about your craft. And, you know, so, and we're not nuclear physicists. We're like, so it's not like, you know, we don't have like huge impact on pass or fail. But if you care about what you do and you want to be the best about what you do, you need to care as if your client's life depending on it.
If they can get to a chin up, they can save their life one day if they're hanging off the cliff.
Exactly.
I know we covered a lot in this episode. I'm sure a lot of you will enjoy it. We do have the rep schemes database that we were referring to throughout the episode. And in that, you have the strength qualities with the definition, the intensities with the corresponding rep schemes and volume, rep schemes, everything we went over, how to load the rep scheme per session and per mesocycle. Order of exposure chart, that's all in there. It is only $30. So grab that, add it to your toolbox. It kind of just summarizes a lot of what we went over here and then some. I think it goes back to not trying to be sexy all the time with too many complicated rep schemes, getting really good at the standard sets so you know how to load and when you get to the more complex rep schemes. Any other last few words before we wrap this one up?
When in doubt, use standard sets because you know why? You can never go wrong. Yep. You can never go wrong with standard sets.
thought you were going to say joke.
I know, me too.
I was like, ooh, what's he going to say?
Poric, Alex, any other closing remarks?
Nope, Steph got it.
Yep.
Shout out to Lloyd Banks because he's so fly.
Wow.
See you next time.